Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Canada once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a couple of times before. So the last reviews I did involving this brewery appeared quite recently on the channel. The latest one was my first solo brewery beer review that I did involving these guys, and prior to that we did a collaboration beer that they did with another Canadian brewery. Both of those beers though were very good, and I think it's definitely fair to say that this brewery is very much an up-and-coming one in Canada. But if people were to ask me about them, I would say they're best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, but from what I gather they are starting to diversify a little bit and do other styles as well, so hopefully we can cover a few of those on the channel at some point in the near future. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I know this brewery can do very well. It's a sub-style though that we haven't touched upon from this brewery yet, but I have heard this one is very good, and yeah, it's one of their latest releases here in Hong Kong as well. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head over to Canada. Like I said, we're going to go to the province of Ontario, to the Toronto area, a little bit out to the west of the city to a place called Milton. And that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Third Moon Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Triple Blood Dim Tide. It comes in at 10.5% ABV, and this one is a New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, apparently this is a triple IPA version of the very first double IPA that these guys ever produced. And you know, these guys have made a really good name for themselves when it comes to these hazy IPAs, and the ones that I've tried from them so far have been pretty damn good actually. So it's going to be interesting to watch the Canadian beer scene over the next wee while and see what beers we get over here from Canada into Hong Kong. So yeah, definitely cool to introduce more Canadian breweries for you here on the channel. And a big shout out to my Canadian beer tubing colleagues as well. Lee Russell is of course one of the OG generation of beer tubers. Make sure you check out his channel, and you've got the newer guys as well like Redbeard, Off the 10th, and there's others there as well who are doing some very nice stuff too. So go and check out some of the Canadian beer tubers, and they'll keep you a little bit more up to date on the Canadian beer scene than I can. But yeah, definitely cool to cover as many Canadian breweries here on Rampant Lion Reviews as possible. But yeah, let's crack on with this one and see what it has in store for us. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Third Moon Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Canadian playlist along with a number of other things that's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, which seems to be quite regularly here in Hong Kong, which I'm very happy about. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewing notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Third Moon Brewing Company once again then. So Third Moon Brewing Company, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Milton in Ontario, which is out to the west of Toronto, and the company was founded by Steve Bibo Pilotto and Chris Steininger. So Bibo is originally from Chicago in Illinois down in the US, and he moved to Montreal to study and then later on to Ontario shortly after graduating. But he studied communications and finance and worked in investment and trade for a number of years, and Chris originally studied maths and computing science, and he comes from a background background in IT and product management. So quite interesting backgrounds, and it's quite common actually for people in finance and IT to get into beer. There's many breweries with people with those backgrounds. But the guys were big beer enthusiasts, and apparently they met through a mutual friend's Untappd meetup, and they sat opposite each other and just nerded out on beer. And this was where the friendship was born. But they both tried to find beers from different breweries across the world that were quite rare, and Bibo was already an avid home brewer, and so they say that they just started out brewing the kind of beers that they wanted to drink themselves. But the brewery was announced in the summer of 2019, and then they opened in 2020 in the middle of the COVID pandemic. But since their foundation, they've added Jim Fay and Cole Firth to the brewing team, while Melissa Steininger also came in to take care of the operations and maintenance. But once the COVID restrictions were lifted, they opened up the tap room at the brewery, and they've been gradually updating the brewery and upgrading the fermentation capacity of it over the last few years, and they've built up a very, very good reputation for themselves in that time. But as of July 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced about 365 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and like I said to you, this brewery have become probably best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, but there are a few other styles listed on there as well, so hopefully we can check those out in future videos. But yeah, definitely cool to try some of this brewery's own beers, because I've only tried, up until very recently, I'd only tried collaborations involving these guys. So yeah, I think that's everything we can really say about Third Moon Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at this beer itself. So like I said to you earlier, this one comes in at 10.5% ABV. It's a New England Hazy, Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA. And this one is brewed with Citra, Mosaic and Idaho 7. All four of these are of course American hops. They all come in at about 14% alpha acid. Citra is going to give you that kind of peachy character, lots of juicy mango and a wee bit of a lemon-limey note in a New England IPA. Mosaic is going to give you a little touch of earthiness in your green component, but also a big juicy tangerine character. And Idaho 7 is all about the softer tropical fruit. Quite a bit of juicy mango, but apricots, pineapples and papaya and stuff like that with it. So good mix of hoppy character in here. And like I said to you earlier, this particular beer is apparently the triple IPA version of the very first double IPA that these guys brewed. So yeah, the original one of course would be the Blood Dim Tide, but yeah, this is triple Blood Dim Tide. But you can see plain silver top on the can there, and you can see the Third Moon Brewing Company symbol here. But yeah, you can see that shark just floating around, swimming about there on the label too, but it's just black on the back here. But yeah, this should be quite nice, this one. Let's get it out into the glass then and see how we go. I don't think we need to say anything more about the beer itself. I think it tells you on the front that the artwork on this one is by Yardwolves, which was the same with the last beer that we tried from these guys. So yeah, let's do it. So one thing that's kind of interesting to point out when it comes to IPAs, pale ales and stuff like this. So you have a family of beers that includes pale ale, IPA, double IPA and barley wines. And these beers are all related through their hop to malt ratios. Now, basically the barley wine was the triple IPA, if you like. But from what I understand, the triple IPAs that we have now and the quadruple IPAs, they use the double IPA hop to malt ratio. But you know, they just put more malt in them, so they are obviously a little bit more alcoholic and things. So there is a little bit of a technical difference in the brewing of these beers, so that's worth paying attention to as well if you really want to nerd out on that. But yeah, triple IPA 10.5% ABV. For me, triple IPAs kind of start at around the 10% mark, and the doubles will start at the 8, quadruples will probably start at 12 or something. But yeah, we've got most of this beer out and into the glass. I'd say about 80 or 85% of this. But you could see that when we poured it, this one poured a lovely bright mango juice yellow colour, and it had just under a finger of a kind of bumpy, I would say, perfect white head. So you can see This one's poured with some kind of medium sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid there, but the head does get a little bit more soapy and bumpy the further up that you go. But yeah, that is fading away to be a kind of thinner foamy layer at the moment. But all in all, this beer looks absolutely lovely. If we shine the light through this, it's pretty damn opaque. So yeah, like I say, this beer gives you this lovely kind of bright yellow mango juice colour. So I like comparing New England IPAs to different fruit juices because that's just what their appearance reminds me of. But yeah, remember the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determine your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But you don't often have to care about that with IPAs of pretty much any description. But yeah, the level of haze in this one is pretty high actually. I mean, this definitely looks like one of the kind of soupier and gloopier New England triples that I've come across before. So remember, the level of haze in these beers depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. That can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer. But yeah, level of haze in this one is pretty damn impressive actually. One of the soupier and gloopier triples that I've seen. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this beer. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there. But yeah, that head has faded away to be a very, very thin foamy layer, and you've just got that kind of thicker ring around the edge of the glass too. But all in all, it looks pretty nice, this one, and pretty much what you would expect of any New England IPA, to be honest with you. So yeah, I don't think we really need to say much more about the appearance of this one then. We can just go on and have a little look at the aroma, and I'm very curious about this. I've heard very, very good things about this beer. I know my friend Nick tried this one the other day, so let's see what we get. That smells lovely. That is really, really nice. Now, the last one that we had, I think, which was it Blood Made Flesh, if I remember, or Dust Made Flesh? I forget the exact name of that one, but the double IPA that we reviewed a few videos ago, I think it was Dust Made Flesh was the name. That was really nice, very, very soft and very, very smooth New England IPA. And I get the impression that this one is going to be the same, but the aroma of this is lovely. It gives you everything that you would want. You've got the nice, juicy, fruity character in there, very, very soft malt base, of course, and you've got that nice, bright green component to this one. But this is going to be one of these very soft, kind of creamy New England IPAs, I would say. So as I've said in many videos before, for me there are 6 elements to think about with your malty and yeasty side of your New England IPA. You've got the kind of farmhousey yeasty type character and the rye leaning grainy side of things. Those are a little bit more common in American brewed New England IPAs, but then you've got wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also the sweeter side of things. You do have to bear in mind though that oats and wheat from Europe and America and probably other places as well are quite different. Oaty, the oats from Europe are creamier, for example. In America they're a little bit softer and more kind of porridgey almost, whereas European wheat is a bit more bitey, American wheat is a little bit more smooth. So these subtleties have to be taken into account. But this beer for me, it does have a little bit of wheaty bitiness to it. It's got a lovely smooth oaty character in there, and you can smell those softer, more porridgey oats in there. And yeah, you've got quite a lot of barley malt in this and a little touch of sweetness to it as well, and a bit of the yeasty character as well. So, the malty yeasty side of this beer is quite diverse, and it's quite, quite well balanced almost as well. I really like how this kind of pieces together. So, yeah, let's break the aroma of this one down then and just describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of the beer, it has this really nice soft white bready hedgehog kind of character coming out of this one, that white bready hedgehog roll type thing. There's a little bit of woodiness and cracker in there, which you're very often going to get from these New England IPAs, but that's not an overly big element in this one, I would say. So yeah, soft, fresh, white bready bread crust in there. You've got that little bit of like Jacob's cream cracker, as I say, and a little bit of woodiness. But then on top of that, you start to get the sweeter, bready side of things. But yeah, on top of that, you've got a really nice kind of wholemeal brown bready sort of thing in there. There's almost a little touch of earthiness or like a kind of farmhousey, crackery note to this beer as well in the background. So yeah, there's a little bit of a kind of wholemeal brown bready character in there. Yeah, a little bit of a wholemeal brown bready character in there. Soft white bready note to it. And yet that bready character really has a little bit of a rusticy, crackery sort of thing going on, which I think is really interesting. But yeah, on top of that, you're getting quite a little bit of wheaty character. And in the back of the nose, the wheat has quite a little bit of bitiness to it, but it's also got a good little bit of smoothness as well, which I think is really, really nice. So yeah, the wheaty character, you get a more dense, smooth, wheaty note coming out of this beer, which I think is very, very nice. And then above that, you start to get the oats. And as I've often said, when it comes to New England IPAs, the oaty side of these beers can be quite interesting because it can very often give you an idea of how fresh your New England IPA is. Essentially, the creamier the oats are, the fresher the beer is, the drier they are, the older it is. And obviously that varies a bit between the European and the American ones, or the North American ones, I should say more generally, because you know, the oats are just different water profiles, different soil profiles and all that. But yeah, this beer is pretty damn fresh. I know that. This one came through Hops Express to Hong Kong, and their stuff's always pretty damn fresh. So you've got a lovely oaty creaminess to this one. You can smell little elements of drier oaty notes in there, but I've got a feeling we're going to get quite a bit of oaty character out of this beer. But definitely you've got a bit of that Werther's Original butter candy butterscotch coming out of the beer, which you would expect when the thing is like, you know, 10%, 10.5% ABV. So you've got that little bit of Werther's Original butter candy butterscotch, which is the boozy side of the beer, a little bit of biscuit as well. But yeah, the way that this one goes together in that sense is really nice. The malty and yeasty side of this beer, I think, is really, really good. So yeah, aroma wise, I really do like how this one pieces together. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else we can really say about the malty side of the beer. Actually, you can smell some of this kind of farmhousey bready character at the back of the nose, but that's to be expected from the style. So yeah, in terms of the green component then, so as I've told you in many videos before, there are three types of hoppings to care about when it comes to IPAs. You've got early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you mainly bitterness and a deeper, danker aroma. Late addition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil. This is of course assuming you have a 90-minute wort boil, which is about the case for most IPAs, of course. But yeah, it gives you a little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and it's going to give you a brighter green component. And then dry hopping, which takes place in the after the wort boil is complete, and that's all about flavour and aroma, and it's going to give you a brighter green component as well. So yeah, for me, this one's got a lovely, very bright green component. New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping. West Coast IPAs use a lot of early addition hopping as well as the other two, which is why they're deeper, danker and more bitter. But the green component in this one is quite distinctive. There's a little bit of earthiness in there, of course, from the mosaic. But yeah, mainly the green component is leaning toward that big floral note. And it does have quite a bit of presence to it. So yeah, big sort of floral aromaticity coming out of this beer. Then you've got a nice grassy zestiness as well, I would say. So yeah, big oily grassy zestiness in there, nice big sort of floral aromaticity. And yeah, it's quite oily overall. I think there was some kind of cryo in this beer, if I remember correctly. So yeah, that would make sense that the green component is that little bit more oily. But yeah, I think that's all we need to say about the green component. Let's go to the fruity side of the beer. So yeah, as we said, Citra, Mosaic and Idaho 7 in this one. And you're getting everything you would expect from these hops on the fruity side of things as well. So for me, you get a little bit of that more pungent grapefruit in this one. It really depends with Citra what yeast and malts you put it with, whether it's going to show you that side of it. But a nice big sharper juicy peachy character in there as well. So yeah, stronger grapefruit, juicy peach, lots of big kind of juicy mango in this one. And yeah, underneath that, yeah, you've got little bits of apricot, you've got bits of pineapple and stuff like this. So yeah, apricot, pineapple, which is all the Idaho 7, of course. A little bit of papaya as well, to be honest with you. And then you've got that juicy tangerine orange from the mosaic in the beer too. I mean, the aroma of this one's just absolutely lovely. So I think this is going to be very, very nice. Could sit and smell this all day, but I think it is about time to try this one then. But do take some time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But let's have a taste of this one now. This is the Triple Blood Dimmed Tide, a 10.5% New England Hazy, Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Third Moon Brewing Company in Milton, Ontario, out to the west of Toronto. Let's see what this beer is all about. The triple IPA version of the very first double IPA that these guys ever produced. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yen from these guys. That's pretty damn good. Yeah, I noticed between this one, well, there's a big bit of sediment just went down into the bottom of the glass there. That's going to sink. Yeah, I can see it there. Yeah, I don't know how well you can see that. I'll need to be careful of that. But yeah, didn't see that in the bottom of the can there. This one is pretty fresh as well. It just says to tide you over on the bottom of the can there. Yeah, these ones, they don't have the canned on date of them, so I thought these were pretty fresh, and you can taste that this beer is pretty fresh as well, and that sediment does look as if it's actually dissolving in the beer as well, which is quite funny. But yeah, this one, lovely New England Triple IPA. We don't have to care about that sediment, it's all natural anyway. But yeah, flavour wise, this one is great. It's kind of similar to the last one we had from them as well, because it's got that sort of smooth and creamy sort of dryness. It does get a little bit drier into the aftertaste, I would say. So yeah. But another great beer from these guys. So yeah, Third Moon Brewing are definitely one of the Canadian breweries you really need to check out. So yeah, let's just break this down then. Middle third of your palate. The backbone of the beer is that soft, fresh, hedgehog roll, white bready bread crust. As you move further forward on that, you get a little bit of woodiness in there. Then you get that nice Jacob's cream cracker coming out of it as well. And that, as I say, I do like how that goes together. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust in there, Jacob's cream cracker, and a little bit of woodiness. On top of that, you have some really nice, you have a little bit of like a wholemeal brown bready note coming out of the beer too, which I think is very nice. But that lingers into the aftertaste, and you just get a little bit of softness out of it too. So yeah, nice little bit of wholemeal brown bready softness in this one. But then on top of that, you start to get the white bready character out of the beer. So the white bready side of the beer, it has a little touch of sweetness to it almost, but it just feels that little bit drier. It's almost got a wee touch of kind of crackery note to it as well, which I do really like. So yeah, bit of a more crisp and dry wholemeal brown bready character in there. Above that, you get the fluffier and sort of crackery white bready note in there, and then above that you get the wheaty side of the beer, and it's the wheaty note in this one's quite interesting because you can feel that more dense white bready character in there. Further back on the palate, of course, it's a little bit more bitey. Further forward, it's a bit smoother and a bit more mellow. And as I've said many a time before on the channel, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate. More, pardon me, dry and bitter flavours will come out further back. But the wheat in this one is very, very smooth actually. As I said, North American wheat tends to be that bit smoother than European wheat, which has got a bit more bite to it. But the oaty character in this beer seems to be playing a bigger role. It's giving you a little bit more creaminess. So on top of the wheaty layer in this beer, you can feel that nice, you can definitely feel that nice little bit of oatiness to it as well. So if you go down the middle line of your palate there, you can feel the really smooth, creamy, oaty notes out of the beer. So yeah, nice kind of creamy, oaty side to the beer there. And then as you move further out toward the edges of it, you've got that little bit of a more dry, oaty character as well. But then in the middle of, in the very dead centre of your palate there, you've got that lovely Werther's Original sort of butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing. And that is of course the boozy side of the beer, and at 10.5% ABV, it would be a bit strange if that didn't show up. But I would say that overall, this beer, there's quite a lot of wheatiness. You get more of the wheaty bitiness into the aftertaste and the oaty creaminess and the barley malts there. So it's kind of balanced between these three elements of it, and you get a bit of the yeastiness into the aftertaste. But around that butter candy butterscotch, you do also get just a wee touch of like McVitie's digestive biscuit coming out of the beer. And yeah, the way that all of that goes together, I think, is really nice. So I think we've covered the middle third of the palate with this beer, in all honesty. So yeah, border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of bready build up in there. You can feel the brown bread in the base, the white bread on top, then the wheaty bitiness above that. But the backbone of that back third of your palate, you can feel the bread crusty character in the base, and then on top, and the bread crusty character is just that little bit drier. You've got the crackery note above that. Then yeah, the brown bready character's in there. It's a little bit drier, of course, but you can feel it's a little bit lighter and more airy and taller. Then you've got the white bready character above that, which is a little bit lighter and taller and more airy. And then above all of that, you've got the kind of wheaty side of the beer just creeping over the top there. And the wheat, of course, has a little bit more bitiness to it on that back third of the palate. Then above everything else, you've got the yeastier side of things coming out of the beer as well. So yeah, let's have a little look at that yeasty character coming out of this one too. But I say, this beer does get a little bit sweeter the further you go into the aftertaste too. You do get more sweetness out of it, but it still has that kind of dry graininess and yeasty sort of underlying, if you like. But yeah, the yeasty side of this beer, in the centre of the yeasty character, it's got a little bit of a more kind of wholemeal brown bready sort of vibe to it. So that's definitely in there. Around that, you have more of a kind of white bready character, I would say. And then yeah, the very edge of it is more like a kind of crackery bread crusty sort of thing. So yeah, sweeter brown bread in the middle, softer kind of grainy white bread around the edge, and then a wee bit of bread crusty character, and all of that sits on top of the back third of your palate there. So yeah, certainly you get more of that yeasty character just pushing its way out into the aftertaste, but definitely back third of the palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. But yeah, the way that goes together is pretty nice. On the hoppy side of things then, let's have a look at the green component first. This beer actually does give you a fair little bit of dankness into the aftertaste too, which is interesting. But yeah, back corners of the palate, you do get a little bit of earthiness in there, which is a characteristic of the mosaic. But yeah, as you move further forward with this one, it does become more kind of floral, and there's a little bit of spice in there, but you do get that little touch of dankness underneath as well, which I think is nice. So yeah, a little bit of dankness underneath, and then that nice bit of oily floral aromaticity. So yeah. But yeah, round the front curve of the tongue, the beer is that little bit lighter and more grassy, but it's still got an oiliness. As I say, I'm pretty sure there was one of the hops in this was kind of cryo or something like that. So you do get a little bit of that smoothness there, but there is more and more floral spice on the front corners of your palate there, and then that more oily but quite zesty, grassy character there. But all in all, green component in this one is quite nice, and it does offer you that little bit of bitterness that you do want to balance the whole thing out at this level of ABV. So yeah, again, very well done from these guys, and I wouldn't expect anything less based on what I've seen so far. But let's look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of the beer. So yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate. You get a little bit of kind of bready build up in there, brown bread in the base, the white bread on top, then the wheaty bitiness in there. But the base of that front third of your palate, it's got a little bit more of bread. Yes, that's it. The bread crust character actually feels slightly more grainy, so yeah, you've got a bit more of like an almost brown bready bread crust on the base of the front third of your palate. Jacob's cream cracker, brown bread, white bread, and then the more dense wheaty sort of thing. But then above that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll the way out of the beer. So let's have a wee look at that fruity side of the thing in this one. So for me, the fruity side of this beer is again kind of what you'd expect from these hops, the Citra, the Idaho 7 and the Mosaic. I'd say it's more tropical leaning, so it leans more toward, the one that jumps out at me is the Idaho 7, and the softer side, the softer tropical fruit the Idaho 7 will offer you, but then either side of that you've got a wee bit more of the kind of more punchy things from the Mosaic on one hand and the Citra on the other. So if you go to the back of that oily bubble that you do get a little bit of that stronger, you know, punchier grapefruit character in the base, but then above that, juicy peach, big juicy mango coming out of this one. Then as you move further forward from that, it's a little bit more, you've got the big juicy mangoes there. As you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, you've got the soft apricot underneath. As I say, you've got the big juicy mango in there, and then you have the you've just got a little bit of almost pineapple sitting on top of that. But yeah, as you move into the front half of the front third of your palate, you're getting quite a pungent tangerine character from the Mosaic in this one as well. So the Mosaic actually, into the aftertaste, I feel you're getting more and more of that pungent Mosaic. But then yeah, behind the very front tip of the tongue where you're starting to get the grassy esters, you do get a little bit of a lemony limey character, and I think that's the Citra that's going to contribute that. So yeah, the fruity side of this one's got quite an interesting balance to it, and I think the further into the aftertaste you go, you're going to get more citrusy character out of it, which I think is really interesting. So yeah. So yeah, in the beginning, definitely more soft and tropical, but yeah, more citrusy, orangey, and kind of grapefruity into the aftertaste for sure. But yeah, I like that about this beer. The way it all goes together, I think, is really nice. I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour. Let's round off with a wee look at the mouthfeel then. So for me, this beer, it's top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. The carbonation is quite smooth in this one. The beer does have a little bit of that creamy character to it, but like I say, it's slightly drier actually in comparison with some other New England IPAs that I've had in recent times. So I'd say it's a bit more dry and a bit more yeasty in its characteristics. IBU wise, I want to say this one's maybe about 50-ish IBUs. It feels like it's got a little bit more bitterness. It could be 60 or something like that. So yeah, wee bit of that going on, which I think balances out the beer a little bit better. But your malty base has a bit of dryness underneath, the bready character in the middle, of course, which gives you the wee bit of dryness, and the bitey wheat on top, and the kind of creamy oats and a little bit of sweetness. But yeah, the fruity side of the beer is quite oily, and as I say, it starts off soft and tropical, but then further into the aftertaste you get more of these kind of more pungent citrusy notes out of this one. But in all, really nice beer once again from these guys. I can feel the booze going to my head a little bit at this point, but yeah, Third Moon Brewing have done a very good job with this again. And I have an even stronger beer to try from these guys for the last one for the moment. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting review as well. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This was the Triple Blood Dim Tide 10.5% New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA. Beautiful beer, this one. Nice level of bitterness, nice maltiness. It gives you everything you'd want from the style, so definitely worth checking out if you get the opportunity. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Third Moon Brewing Company as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slanget, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Ciao just now.